The message came by text. Not a call, not a visit, just a cold, formal message. Mom, we need to talk. The Garden Terrace, Friday at 8. It's important. Lauren. Lauren, my 42-year-old daughter, the woman who used to call me every Sunday, who used to bring my grandchildren to visit me every month, until she stopped doing it about 8 months earlier. The calls became rarer, the visits vanished completely, and now this. A formal summons to an expensive restaurant. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I read the message 3 times that Monday morning. But before I go on, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, leave a like, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story from. I truly want to know how far it has traveled. I was drinking coffee on the balcony of my apartment in Brickell, watching Miami wake up the way I had done every day since Thomas died. Almost 5 years of coffee alone. Almost 5 years of silence where there used to be conversation. Oh, good morning, Mom. No, how are you? No kiss at the end. Just those dry words, as if Lauren were scheduling a meeting with a vendor. I let the coffee go cold between my hands, the Garden Terrace. I knew the place by name, one of those restaurants in Coral Gables where a plate of pasta costs what I spend on groceries in a week. It wasn't the kind of place Lauren usually suggested for meeting me. Then again, Lauren didn't suggest meeting me anymore. I tried to remember the last time my daughter had truly called. Not a quick happy birthday or happy holidays message. A real call, the kind where you ask how the other person is and actually wait for the answer. It had been months. Her birthday had been in September. I called to wish her a happy birthday. The conversation lasted 3 minutes. I know because I looked at the call log afterward, trying to understand why it had left such a bitter taste in my mouth. Hi, Mom. Thanks for calling. I'm slammed right now. We'll talk later, okay? Love you. We didn't talk. And now a formal summons to an expensive restaurant, along with Andrew, my 39-year-old son, the boy I used to take to the park every Saturday, who was now a bank manager and barely had time for 1 call a month. I went to the window. The October sun was strong, that Miami heat that lingers even when the rest of the country calls it fall. Down below, the city kept moving. Cars, people, life happening. And there I was, 65 years old, holding a phone with a message that felt like a sentence. I thought of Thomas. If he had been alive, he would have known what to say. He would have known how to read that message, how to calm the knot forming in my chest. Thomas always knew how to deal with the children in a way I never could. He was the heart of the family. I was the head. Together, we worked. Give it time, Margaret, he used to say whenever I complained about the children drifting away. They'll grow up. But Thomas was no longer here. He had died almost 5 years ago, 3 months after finding out he had pancreatic cancer. And the children, apparently, had not grown up. They had grown distant. I picked up the phone and dialed the number I knew by heart. Linda answered on the 3rd ring. Margaret, are you okay? I don't know. I need to tell you something. Read it again, Linda asked over the phone. I read the message out loud, silence on the other end. Linda, I'm just sitting here thinking. It smells like a trap, Margaret. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That's what I thought too. Expensive restaurant, formal message, no context. That's not a dinner invitation. That's an ambush. But an ambush for what? Linda took a moment to answer. I don't know. But I know your daughter, and I know your son. And I know they haven't shown up in months. They don't call. They don't ask whether you're even alive. Linda. It's true, Margaret. You know it is. When was the last time Andrew came to visit you? I thought about it. I tried to remember. My son's face came to mind, but the last visit had been in January of the previous year, around the 5th anniversary of Thomas's passing. A year, Margaret. A year without seeing your son. And Lauren came by at Christmas, but she stayed 20 minutes. Said she had somewhere to be. Linda sighed on the other end of the line. And now, out of nowhere, she sets up dinner at some fancy restaurant and says they need to talk. About what? Why didn't she say it over the phone? Why didn't she come to your apartment? I don't know exactly, neither do I, but whatever it is, it won't be good. I looked out the window again. A cloud passed, blocking the sun for a moment. I need to go, Linda. I know you do. I'm just telling you to go prepared. Prepared how? Prepared to hear things you don't want to hear, and prepared not to let them destroy you. I went silent. Margaret, I'm here. What are you thinking? I thought of the envelope sitting in the office drawer. The white envelope with the will I had prepared with attorney Robert Williams 6 months earlier. The alternate will, as I called it. Plan B in case of deep disappointment. At the time, I had hoped I would never need it. I'm thinking maybe you're right, I answered. Maybe I need to be prepared. The following days passed slowly. I tried to keep my routine. Coffee on the balcony, crossword puzzles, a walk at the park, a light lunch, reading in the afternoon. But Lauren's message kept hammering inside my head like an annoying song that wouldn't go away. On Wednesday, I went into the office. The left drawer of the desk, the one Thomas used to use for important documents. The envelope was there. I picked it up, felt the weight of the paper, opened it, and reread the contents. Attorney Williams's words echoed in my memory. Mrs. Miller, are you sure? This is final. I know, Robert, but I need to have this option. I hope I never use it. I put the envelope into the purse I would carry on Friday. On Thursday night, I couldn't sleep properly. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about my children, my husband, the life I had built, and how it now seemed to be collapsing in slow motion. I remembered the day we sold the company, March of 2019, 34 years of work, of early mornings, of sacrifice. Miller and Santos commercial representation, the name Thomas and I had built from nothing. And finally, the reward, $10 million deposited into the account. Thomas was radiant that day. Now we're going to enjoy life, Margaret, travel, rest, enjoy the grandkids. I smiled at the memory, and the pain came with it, the way it always does. 6 months after the sale, Thomas found out he had cancer. 3 months after the diagnosis, he was gone. And the children? The children came to the funeral, of course. They cried, they hugged me, they promised they would always be close. Empty promises. Little by little, the calls diminished. The visits became rarer. Christmas became a 20-minute obligation. Birthdays became WhatsApp messages with cake emojis. And now a formal summons to an expensive restaurant. I looked at the clock on the nightstand, 3 in the morning. Thomas, I whispered into the dark. What are they going to do? The silence did not answer. Friday, October 18th, 2024. The day dragged on. At 6, I started getting ready. Beige tailored pants, a dark green silk blouse, nothing flashy. I put on the pearl earrings Thomas had given me for our 30th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror, 65 years old, gray hair, brown eyes that had seen a lot. Can you handle this? I said to my reflection. Whatever it is, you can handle it. I picked up my purse and made sure the envelope was inside. At 7:30, I left. The night was warm, around 80 degrees, typical for October in Miami. Traffic along Biscayne Boulevard was manageable, and I reached Coral Gables in 20 minutes. I parked my silver Toyota Corolla on a side street. The car was 6 years old, but it worked perfectly. I had never seen a reason to replace it. Thomas taught me that a car is for driving, not for impressing people. The garden terrace sat on the second floor of a glass-fronted building near Miracle Mile. I climbed the marble stairs, feeling the staff's eyes on me. My clothes were too simple for that place. My purse was too inexpensive. My car downstairs was too modest. So what? I had nothing to prove to anyone. Good evening, Mom. Do you have a reservation? I'm meeting my daughter, Lauren Parker. Ah, yes. She's already at the table. This way, please. The host led me through the dining room. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, candles on every table. The kind of place people go to see and be seen, to spend in one night what many people earn in a month. Lauren adored places like that. I never understood why. The table was by the window, overlooking the tree-lined street below, and there they were, Lauren and Andrew, my 2 children, waiting for me together. My stomach dropped. Lauren looked flawless as always. Straight, shiny brown hair, perfect makeup, a dress in a color that probably had a French name, designer handbag resting on the chair beside her, manicured nails, carefully practiced posture. The image of a successful woman. At least that was the image she liked to project. Andrew wore a dress shirt and dark slacks, even though it was Friday night. My son had always been more restrained than his sister. Quieter, more insecure, easier to influence. They both had glasses in their hands. White wine for Lauren, whiskey for Andrew. Neither of them stood up when I arrived. That told me everything I needed to know. Mom, Lauren said. You're early. I sat in the empty chair, the one facing both of them, as if I were the defendant at a trial. Punctuality is respect, I replied. That's how I was raised. Always so formal, Andrew muttered, swirling the whiskey in his glass without looking me in the eye. I looked at the two of them. Lauren, 42, an interior designer with her own studio. Andrew, 39, a bank manager, married to Karen, that daughter-in-law who had never hidden the fact that she found me unsuitable. Too old, too simple. These were the babies I had held in my arms, the children I had raised, the adults who now looked at me as if I were an inconvenient stranger. You wanted to talk, I said. I'm here. Lauren and Andrew exchanged a look. The kind of look people exchange when they have rehearsed a difficult conversation and are deciding who should start. The waiter appeared, breaking the moment. Would you like something to drink, Mom? Water, please. Still, Lauren made an impatient gesture, as if my choice embarrassed her. Mom, you can order whatever you want, we're paying. I know I can, and I want water. The waiter took the order and disappeared. Silence fell over the table like a wet cloth. Heavy, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore. Around us, the restaurant hummed with conversation and laughter. Couples having dinner, families celebrating, people living their lives. And there, at that table by the window, sat 3 people who shared blood but seemed to share nothing else. I waited. I would not speak first. They had called the meeting. They could explain why. Lauren took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and began. Mom, we need to be honest with you. I'm listening. It's about our relationship. The relationship between the 3 of us. What about our relationship? Lauren looked me in the eyes, and what I saw there chilled me inside. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was something worse. It was rehearsed indifference. It doesn't work anymore, my daughter said, and we need to talk about that. Lauren looked as if she had been waiting her whole life to say what came next. Mom, I'm going to speak, and I need you to listen until I'm finished without interrupting. Can you do that? I nodded. My daughter straightened her posture, as if she were about to give a presentation to important clients. Rehearsed. All of it was rehearsed. Andrew and I have talked a lot over the past few weeks about us, about our childhood, about the family, and we've reached some conclusions we need to share with you. She paused dramatically, deliberately. The truth is, you were never a real mother to us. The words hit me like a slap, but I didn't move. 65 years of life had taught me not to show pain in front of people who wanted to hurt me. You were always working, Lauren continued, her voice firm and cold. Always in a meeting, always with your head in the company. Dad was the one who actually raised us. He went to school conferences. He helped with homework. He was there when we needed someone. Dad was present, Andrew agreed, finally finding the courage to speak. You were a shadow. You showed up sometimes to demand grades, demand good behavior, demand. But you were never truly there. You were never satisfied with anything we did, Lauren said. I got an A-, and you asked why it wasn't an A. I won a swim meet, and you asked whether I had studied for my test. Nothing was ever enough. I listened. Every word was a needle slowly entering my skin. Not enough to make me scream, but enough to make me bleed inside. And when we grew up, Lauren continued, it got worse. You missed my graduation. I was there, I said, unable to contain myself. You were late. Her voice rose. You missed my speech. I was valedictorian, Mom. Valedictorian. And when I looked out at the audience, my mother's chair was empty. There was traffic. There's always an excuse. Lauren cut me off. Always. Traffic, meeting, client, emergency. It's never your fault, never your choice. But the result is always the same. You weren't there. Andrew leaned forward, as if he had finally gathered enough courage. My wedding, Mom. You almost missed my wedding. I was there, Andrew. You arrived when Karen was already walking into the church. I looked back, and my mother's chair was empty. Do you know what I felt? I didn't answer. Shame, my son said. I felt shame. My mother-in-law noticed. She looked at the empty chair, then looked at me with pity. Pity, Mom. On my wedding day. The waiter brought my water, set it on the table in silence, and vanished. No one thanked him. Lauren took control of the conversation again. She had always been like that. She needed to be in charge. What we're trying to say, Mom, is that you never prioritized the family. The company always came first. Money always came first. And we got whatever was left. Dad made up for it, Andrew said. His voice lower now. Dad was always there. But Dad is gone. And without him, Lauren completed. It doesn't make sense to keep pretending. I felt a shift in the air, a different kind of tension. Something was coming. The final blow. Pretending what? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Lauren and Andrew exchanged another look, that rehearsed look. That we're a family, my daughter said. That we have a relationship that works. That there's love between us. Silence. The truth, Mom, Lauren went on, is that I don't feel love for you anymore. I tried for years, I tried. But I can't anymore. She paused as if she wanted the words to sink all the way in. I look at you and see a stranger. A woman who shares my DNA, but someone I don't really know and who doesn't really know me. I feel the same, Andrew said, almost whispering. I'm sorry, Mom, but it's true. I picked up the glass of water, took a sip, and put it back on the table. My hands did not tremble. On the outside, I was stone. On the inside, I was bleeding. And what do you propose? I asked. A separation, Lauren said without hesitation. Clean, honest, no drama. Separation. Yes, we stop pretending we're a family. We stop doing these Christmas gatherings, where everyone counts the minutes until they can leave. We stop calling out of obligation, visiting out of guilt, keeping up this farce. Everyone goes on with their life, Andrew added. No resentment, no demands, just peace. I looked at both of them. 42 years of Lauren, 39 years of Andrew. A lifetime of raising, feeding, educating, and sacrificing so they could have everything I never had. And this was how it ended. In an expensive restaurant, with white tablecloths and crystal glasses. My children discarding me as if I were an old piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. And my grandchildren? I asked. The question seemed to catch Lauren off guard. What about them, Ethan and Grace? Am I not going to see my grandchildren anymore? Lauren looked away for a moment, the first sign of discomfort since she had begun her rehearsed speech. It would be better that way, she said, to avoid confusion. Confusion, yes, they're young, they won't understand the situation. And honestly, Mom, she looked back at me and the coldness had returned. You don't have a relationship with them. They barely know you. Ethan called you the lady in the apartment once, Andrew said, as if that proved something. He was 7. He didn't know you were his grandmother, because you never brought him to see me, I said. The first trace of emotion escaped my voice, and I hated myself for it. Because it didn't make sense, Lauren answered quickly. You don't know how to deal with children. You never did. They were uncomfortable here. I closed my eyes for a second. I remembered baby Grace in Thomas's arms, my youngest granddaughter with those big, curious eyes. This girl has my eyes, Margaret, Thomas had said that day. She's special. I remembered little Ethan running through my apartment and Lauren asking me not to mess up his routine, then taking him away after half an hour. I remembered every shortened visit, every holiday cut short, every excuse invented to keep me from seeing my grandchildren. And now they had the nerve to say I had no relationship with the children, as if it were my fault. So that's it, I said, opening my eyes. You want me to disappear from your lives? It's not disappearing, Lauren said. It's accepting reality. And what is reality, Lauren? That we aren't a real family. We're people who share blood and history, but not love. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be dramatic. We can just move forward, each on our own path. A clean separation, I repeated. No guilt. No obligation. Exactly. I looked out the window. The Miami night shone outside, indifferent to what was happening inside. Cars passing, people walking, the city living its life while mine fell apart. I thought of Thomas. What would you do, my love? What would you say to them? But Thomas was not here anymore. And if he had been, maybe things would have been different. Maybe the children would not have reached this point. Or maybe they would have. Maybe the problem had never been my absence. Maybe it was something inside Lauren and Andrew that all the love in the world could not fix. The waiter appeared again. Would you like to see the menu? Lauren nodded with efficient confidence. Yes, please. He handed out the menus. Lauren opened hers immediately, her eyes scanning the options without even flinching at the prices. Andrew flipped through his menu without really seeing it, clearly uncomfortable with all of this. Interesting. Andrew did not want to be there. Lauren had convinced him, dragged him, manipulated him, the way she always had since they were children. The salmon here is excellent, Lauren said. Mom, you should try it. I'll just have soup. I'm not hungry, she shrugged as if my choice were one more proof of my inadequacy. We ordered grilled salmon for Lauren, medium rare filet mignon for Andrew, vegetable soup for me. When the waiter left, I spoke. May I say something now? Lauren looked surprised. Of course. You're right. They both looked confused. About what? About some things. Not everything, but some things. I took another sip of water and gathered my thoughts. I worked too much. That's true. I missed important moments. I arrived late when I should have arrived early. I prioritized the company on days when I should have prioritized you. Lauren opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. Let me finish. She closed her mouth. I did that because I came from poverty, Lauren. You know that, but you don't know what it really means. My father worked in a factory and made almost nothing. My mother took in laundry to make extra money. I spent my entire childhood sleeping in a room the size of your walk-in closet, sharing a bed with 2 sisters. I paused. I went hungry, real hunger. Not I skipped lunch hunger. Hunger where there is nothing to eat. And when your father and I started the company, I promised myself my children would never go through what I went through. Mom, we're not talking about money. Let me finish. Lauren shut her mouth again. I worked to give you the life I didn't have. Private school from kindergarten on. College paid for, both of you. Apartments as wedding gifts when you got married. Help whenever you needed it, without asking for anything in return. Except presents, Andrew said, almost whispering. Except presents, I agreed. That's true, and for that, I'm sorry. Silence. Lauren and Andrew looked at me, waiting for the but. They knew there was one. But you're also wrong about many things. Lauren stiffened. Wrong? How? I was at your graduation, Lauren. I was there. I saw you walk onto that stage. I saw you give your speech. I saw you receive your diploma. I cried that day because I was so proud. But you were late. 15 minutes late, because there was an accident on I-95 that shut down traffic. I left the house 2 hours early. 2 hours, Lauren. Do you think I wanted to be late? Do you think I didn't try? You could have left even earlier, and you could have given me the benefit of the doubt once. One single time in your life. But no, you've carried those 15 minutes for 20 years as proof that I didn't love you, as if 15 minutes erased an entire lifetime. Lauren did not answer. I turned to Andrew. And you at your wedding. I was there. I sat in the front row. I saw you exchange rings with Karen. I saw you be pronounced husband and wife. I was there, Andrew, but you almost. I was almost late because an important client called at the last minute, and I had to choose. Do you know what I chose? He did not answer. I chose to hang up on the client and go to my son's wedding. I lost the deal. The client signed with our competitor the next day, and I never regretted it, because I was there to watch you get married. Andrew lowered his eyes. But you only remember the almost. You only remember that I almost got there late. You don't remember that I was there. You don't remember that I chose you. I looked at both of them. You spent your lives building a story about me. A story where I'm the villain, the absent mother, the woman who loved money more than her children. And every time something happened that didn't fit that story, you ignored it, twisted it, or simply forgot it. That's not fair, Lauren said. We didn't invent anything. No, you didn't invent it. You selected it. You took the bad moments and turned them into the whole story. You threw away the good moments as if they didn't count. I took a deep breath. But you're adults, 42 and 39 years old. If that's the story you want to tell about me, I can't stop you. The waiter brought the food. Salmon gleaming with butter, filet mignon bleeding just right, my modest soup releasing steam. No one touched anything. So you don't accept the separation? Lauren asked. I looked at my daughter. I didn't say that. Then what? I'm processing, Lauren. You just told me you don't love me and want to cut me out of your lives. Give me a minute. She had the decency to look slightly ashamed. Only slightly. Andrew kept staring at his untouched plate. The restaurant buzzed around us. A family was celebrating something. Cake, candles, happy birthday sung off key. I looked at that family. Father, mother, teenage children laughing. Were they truly happy? Or did they also have their secrets, their resentments, their knives tucked away for the right moment? Mom, Lauren called. I brought my attention back to her. You want a clean separation? I said. You want to move on, each with your own life, with no obligation. It's what makes the most sense. And the grandchildren. You want me gone from their lives too. Lauren hesitated for the first time. It would be easier. For whom? For everyone. I nodded slowly. I understand. I picked up the purse hanging from my chair. Lauren and Andrew exchanged confused looks. Are you leaving? Andrew asked. Not yet. I opened my purse and took out the white envelope. Before any decision is made, I want to show you something. I placed the envelope on the table between the untouched plates. Lauren looked at the paper as if it were a bomb. In a way, it was. What is this? She asked. Open it and read. Mom, we don't need drama. It isn't drama, it's information. Open it. Lauren picked up the envelope carefully, as if it might bite. She opened it, pulled out the documents, and started reading. I watched her face change. First confusion, then disbelief, then something that looked like panic. What is this? She repeated, but now her voice was different. Read it out loud so Andrew can hear too. Lauren swallowed, looked at her brother, then at me, then back at the document, and began to read. Last Will and Testament of Margaret Ellen Miller. Revised September 2024. Andrew straightened in his chair. Lauren continued, her voice growing weaker. I, Margaret Ellen Miller, citizen of the United States, widow, resident of Miami, Florida, being of sound mind and full legal capacity, declare this to be my last will and testament. She skipped several legal paragraphs, her eyes racing over the document until she found what mattered. Estimated total estate, $18.5 million. Absolute silence. Andrew snatched the document from his sister's hands. 18.5 million? That can't be right. I said nothing. I let them read. Lauren took the paper back, her hands visibly trembling now. Estate composition. Financial accounts and investments, $11 million. Commercial properties, 2 office units in Coral Gables, $2 million. Residential property, apartment in Brickell, $1.5 million. Other assets, $4 million. She stopped reading and looked at me. Mom, you have $18.5 million. Keep reading, I said. The important part comes next. Lauren lowered her eyes to the paper again. Her hands were shaking so badly the document rustled. Distribution of assets upon my death, she read. To my children, Lauren Miller Parker and Andrew Miller, I leave the sum of $1,000 each, intended exclusively to cover funeral expenses, should they choose to arrange them. She stopped. $1,000? Keep going. The remainder of my estate shall be distributed as follows. Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center for Pancreatic Cancer Research, $7.5 million. Feeding America for assistance to families facing food insecurity, $5 million. The Thomas and Margaret Miller Scholarship Fund for low-income students attending public and private universities, $5 million. Administrative reserve and contingencies, $1 million. Lauren dropped the paper on the table as if it burned her. You're giving $18.5 million to charity, Andrew said. $18.5 million, and we get $1,000 each. I corrected him. $1,000 each for the funeral. Lauren seemed to have lost the ability to form full sentences. Mom, this is insane. You can't. I can, I said. It's my money. I worked my whole life for it. I can do whatever I want. But you live in a 1,200 square foot apartment. You drive an old Corolla. You wear clothes from outlet stores. So we thought that I had nothing left. I finished, that the money was gone, that you were doing me a favor by putting up with me all these years, waiting for me to die soon so you could be rid of the burden. Lauren went pale. That's not what. That is exactly what it was, I said. I let you believe I had little. I wanted to see who you really were when there was no inheritance at stake. Now I know. Andrew looked stunned. But Mom, $18.5 million. We sold the company for $10 million in 2019, I explained. Your father and I invested well. Real estate, funds, right decisions at the right time. In almost 5 years, the money nearly doubled. And you never told us, Lauren said. There was something in her voice now. Something that sounded like anger. No. Because I wanted to see who you were without the influence of money, without the expectation of an inheritance. Just who you were as people, as children. Pause, now I know. Lauren leaned forward, her eyes shining. Mom, wait, we can talk about this. We are talking, not like this. We can rethink what we said. That isn't what we wanted. Oh no, I interrupted. You just told me you don't love me, that you want a clean separation, that my grandchildren would be better off without me. That was 5 minutes ago, Lauren. 5 minutes. We were emotional. We were carrying old resentments. But that doesn't mean that you wanted to be disinherited. Silence. That's it, isn't it? I said. You wanted to cut the emotional ties but keep the financial ones. You wanted the freedom of not being family with the benefit of inheriting like family. Lauren opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Andrew found his voice. Mom, we made a mistake. We said things we shouldn't have said. But you are our mother. I can't just, what? Not respect your wishes. What wishes? The clean separation. Everyone going their own way. That's what you asked for. But not like this. Not with all this at stake. I looked at my son, my boy, the baby I rocked so many nights, the child I taught to ride a bike, the man I watched graduate, marry, and build a life. And now he sat there sweating cold because he had discovered that despising his mother came with a price. Andrew, I said with a calm that surprised even me, 30 seconds ago you agreed it would be better if we no longer had contact. What changed? He did not answer. What changed was the number in the bank account. While you thought I was a poor old woman living on rent. Your apartment isn't rented, Lauren interrupted. No, it's mine. Paid off 15 years ago. So are the 2 commercial units in Coral Gables that bring in rent every month. Lauren looked as if she might faint. While you thought there was nothing to inherit, I continued. It was easy to discard me. Easy to say you don't love me, that I'm a stranger, that the grandchildren would be better off without me. But now that you've found out there's $18.5 million, it's not about the money, Lauren said. But her voice didn't even convince her. It is only about the money, I said, and you just proved it. The waiter appeared, looked at the untouched plates, sensed the tension, and disappeared without saying a word. At least someone there had sensitivity. Lauren tried a new approach. Mom, when did you do this? The first version was in April. I revised it in September. September? That was a month ago. That was when I realized you had completely stopped looking for me. 8 months without a visit. Calls growing shorter and colder. I started to understand. Understand what? That you were just waiting. Waiting for me to die. Waiting to inherit. Waiting to be free of the inconvenience of having a living mother who needed attention. That isn't true. Then tell me, Lauren, why did you stop visiting me? Silence. Why did you cut my calls down to 2 minutes? Why did you invent excuses every time I suggested Sunday lunch? Why did you send me a text to set up this dinner instead of calling? Lauren did not answer. Because it was easier, I said. Easier to erase me little by little. Easier to reduce me to an obligation. Then to a nuisance. Then to nothing. You thought I didn't notice, but I noticed everything. I picked up my purse and put the envelope back inside. And now you have exactly what you asked for. A clean separation. Mom, no, Andrew almost shouted. A few people at nearby tables looked over. We can fix this. We can take it back. Take back what? The things you said? No, Andrew. Words cannot be unsaid, but we didn't mean them. Yes, you did. You rehearsed this. You planned it. You chose an expensive restaurant so I wouldn't make a scene. You thought through every detail. I looked from one to the other. The only detail you didn't think about was that the absent, cold mother had spent the last 5 years watching, waiting, wanting to believe you would go back to being the children I raised. But you didn't. You got worse. Lauren had tears in her eyes now, but I knew my daughter. I knew those tears. They were tears of frustration, not regret. Tears from someone who had watched her plan go wrong. Mom, please, she said. Don't do this to us. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this yourselves. But it's so much money. Now it's about the money. I thought it wasn't. Lauren fell silent. I stood up from the table. Where are you going? Andrew asked. Home. I'm tired, but we need to talk. We already talked. You said what you wanted to say. I showed what I needed to show. Everything is very clear now. I took some cash from my purse. $50. I placed it on the table. That covers my water and the soup I didn't eat. Mom, wait. No. My voice came out firmer than I expected. You wanted peace. You wanted everyone to go their own way. Now you have it. I looked at them one last time. My children, my flesh and blood, the people I had worked for, sacrificed for, dreamed for. And all I could see now were 2 strangers calculating how much they had just lost. The $18.5 million will go to people who truly need it, I said. Cancer research so other families don't lose the person they love the way I lost Thomas. Food assistance to help people who know real hunger the way I once did. Scholarships to give opportunities to young people like the girl I used to be. I took a step back, and you too will receive $1,000 each for the funeral if you choose to attend. Mom, good night. Enjoy dinner. I turned my back and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Lauren call my name once, then twice. I did not look back. I went down the marble stairs and stepped into the warm Miami night. The air was heavy and humid, threatening a storm. I got into my car, locked the doors, and only then, alone in the dark, did I let the tears come. Before I continue my story, subscribe to the channel and tap the bell. This is only just beginning. I got home at 10 o'clock that night. The apartment was dark and quiet, exactly as I had left it. I locked the door, dropped my purse on the couch, and went to the window. The city glittered below, indifferent to what had happened. I thought about calling Linda, but it was late. She would worry. She would come rushing over. Tomorrow. I would tell her everything tomorrow. I went to the bedroom, changed into my nightgown, and lay down in the bed I had shared with Thomas for 40 years. The bed that was now too large for me alone. Did you see that? I whispered into the dark. Did you see what your children did? The silence did not answer, but somehow I felt that Thomas knew. Wherever he was, he knew. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry at him for leaving me. I was angry at the children for making me feel as if everything had been my fault. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Sleep took its time arriving, crowded with images from the dinner, Lauren's words, Andrew's face. But at some point before dawn, exhaustion won. The phone started ringing at 6 in the morning. Lauren. I ignored it. It rang again at 6:15. Andrew. I ignored it. Between 6:30 and 8 in the morning, my phone recorded 23 missed calls. Messages began to arrive. Mom, please answer. We need to talk. That isn't what we wanted. Call me when you can, please. I read them all. I answered none. Saturday sunlight entered through the bedroom window. A beautiful day outside. Blue sky, warm air, Miami looking as if it were mocking the storm inside me. I got up, went to the kitchen, and made coffee. Routine anchored me. It was the only thing I could control. At 9 o'clock, I called Linda. Margaret, what happened? Can you come over? I'm leaving now. Linda arrived at 10 with cheese biscuits and a worried face. You look awful, she said first. Thank you, tell me. So I told her everything. The dinner, the accusations, the proposal for a clean separation, the reveal of the will. Lauren's face when she discovered the $18.5 million. The pathetic attempt to backtrack. Linda listened in silence, her eyes getting wider and wider. When I finished, she released a long sigh. My God, Margaret, I know, $18.5 million, I know. And they had no idea. No one did. That's how I wanted it. Linda looked at me with something that seemed like admiration. You planned this. I didn't plan the dinner, but I planned to be ready for the moment they showed me who they really were. And they showed me, word for word. Linda leaned back on the couch, processing. And now? What are you going to do? I looked at my phone, which wouldn't stop vibrating with messages. Nothing. Nothing? They wanted separation. They'll have it. I won't answer calls. I won't reply to messages. I won't open the door if they show up here. Can you do that? I thought about the question. I'll have to. Linda held my hand. And how are you really? I looked at my friend of 40 years, the only person in the world who truly knew me, who had seen me strong and weak, happy and devastated, at the top and at rock bottom. Hurting, I admitted. It hurts a lot. But I'm not sorry, nor should you be. Was I really that bad of a mother, Linda? She squeezed my hand hard. You were at every graduation. You paid for every college. You were there when Lauren had Ethan, when Andrew got married, when Thomas died. Yes, but you and Thomas were a team. You brought in the money. He brought the presents. It isn't a crime to divide responsibilities. But they said what they wanted to believe. Because it's easier to blame you than admit they're ungrateful, petty, and greedy. My eyes filled with tears. Lauren was crying when I left. Crocodile tears. You think so? Margaret, she spent the whole dinner attacking you. She said she doesn't love you, that you're a stranger, that your grandchildren would be better off without you. Then suddenly, once she finds out there's money, she starts crying? Please, Linda was right. I knew she was right, but it still hurt. What do I do now? I asked. Now you live. You drink your coffee every morning, take your walks, read your books, and let them drown in their own greed. And if they come here, you don't open the door. If they insist, you call the police. I looked at Linda, surprised. The police, Margaret. They made it clear they don't see you as a mother. They wanted to separate from you. Fine. Now they're strangers. And strangers who invade your privacy can be reported. It was a strange thought. My own children as strangers, as intruders. But that was the reality they had chosen. All right, I said. I won't open the door. Good, and I won't answer messages. Even better. I looked at the phone vibrating one more time. Lauren again, I turned it off. There, I said. Silence. Linda smiled. That's the Margaret I know. The following week was difficult. Every morning, I woke up and turned on the phone only to see a flood of messages. Lauren, Andrew. Sometimes both in the same minute. Their voices grew more desperate. Mom, we need to talk for real. It wasn't anything like what you understood. Please let me explain. I love you, Mom. I always have. That last one was from Andrew. I read it several times. I love you. 3 words I hadn't heard from him in years, and now they magically appeared after he discovered I had $18.5 million. I did not answer. On Wednesday, I went to Attorney Williams's office to confirm that the will was active and protected. Mrs. Miller, he said, adjusting his dark-framed glasses. Are you sure you want to keep it this way? If you change your mind later. I'm not changing my mind, Robert. They may try to contest it, claim undue influence, diminished mental capacity. And will they succeed? He shook his head. No. The will was prepared according to every legal protocol. You recently completed a psychiatric evaluation. You have a history of sound financial decisions, and the document was witnessed by independent professionals. Any challenge would likely be dismissed. And the mandatory share, I asked. Don't they have a right to half? Most of the estate is structured in ways that don't pass directly through probate, Mrs. Miller. Lifetime charitable commitments, trust structures, holding companies. What remains for division is a small fraction. They would receive very little anyway. You simply formalize that in the will. Then it's settled. Attorney Williams looked at me for a moment. If I may say so, Mrs. Miller, I knew Thomas for 25 years, and I've known you just as long. You were an admirable couple. What your children did. He stopped, choosing his words. Thomas would be very sad, but he would also be very proud of you. My chest tightened. Thank you, Robert. I left the office with the certainty that I had made the right decision, but certainty did not erase the pain. It only made it more bearable. That weekend, Lauren appeared at my building. The doorman called through the intercom. Mrs. Miller, your daughter is here. Should I send her up? I looked out the window. Down below, Lauren's black SUV, still under financing, was parked by the curb. No. Tell her I'm not home. What do you mean, Mrs. Miller? Tell her I'm not home, George, and that I don't receive unannounced visitors. Silence on the other end. All right, Mom. I stayed at the window watching. A few minutes later, I saw Lauren leave the building, her face red with frustration. She looked up, maybe searching for my window, then got into the car and drove away. My heart was racing, but I did not open the door. I did not answer, I did not give in. Small victories, the days passed. October turned into November. The heat rose, the Florida air growing heavier. Miami entered that suffocating season of 90-degree days and humidity that clings to the skin. The messages became less frequent. One a day, then one every 2 days, then one a week. The children were losing hope, or planning a new strategy. I kept my routine. Coffee, walks, reading, lunch with Linda twice a week. Life went on, despite everything. But there were difficult moments. One afternoon, I found an old photograph in a drawer. Lauren and Andrew as children, sitting on Thomas's lap, everyone smiling at the camera. Christmas of 1990, maybe. I remembered that day. I had made turkey, cinnamon French toast, everything the children liked. I looked at the photo for a long time. Where did we go wrong? At what moment did those babies turn into people capable of doing what they did? There was no answers. Maybe there never would be. I put the photo back in the drawer. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. The intercom rang at 2 in the afternoon. George, the doorman, sounded hesitant. Mrs. Miller, there's a man here. He says he's your son-in-law. Daniel Parker. Daniel, Lauren's husband. The man I barely saw at family gatherings, always in a corner, always with that air of thinking himself superior. I considered refusing, but something told me it was worth hearing what he had to say. It was useful to know the enemy's strategy. "Send him up, George." 3 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Daniel stood there in a light blue dress shirt and khaki pants as if he had just left a business meeting. Gray at the temples, expensive watch on his wrist, probably a gift from some old client, because I knew he didn't have the money to buy one himself. "Mrs. Miller," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for seeing me. Come in, Daniel, but be brief. I don't have the whole afternoon." He entered, looking around the apartment as if appraising it. Small, modest, quality furniture, but no ostentation. Nothing that suggested $18.5 million. "May I sit?" "You may." He sat on the couch. I stayed standing by the window. I did not offer coffee. I did not offer water. He was not welcome, and I wanted him to know it. "Mrs. Miller," Daniel began, crossing his legs with practiced casualness. "I came because I believe there has been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" "Yes, at the dinner. Lauren told me everything that happened, and well, I think things got out of hand." "Got out of hand." He looked uncomfortable at my dry repetition. Lauren was emotional. She had been holding things in for years, you know how that is. And when she finally let them out, they came out in an inappropriate way. Inappropriate is an interesting word for what happened. Daniel sighed, as if I were a stubborn child refusing to understand the obvious. "What I'm trying to say is that no one at that table truly wanted a separation. Lauren loves you. Andrew loves you. They just needed to be heard." I looked at my son-in-law, that man I saw once a year at most, who had never asked how I was, never offered help after Thomas died, never treated my daughter with the respect she deserved, and was now sitting on my couch trying to convince me that everything had been a misunderstanding. "Daniel," I said, "how much do you currently owe?" The fake smile vanished from his face. "What do you mean? Your debt, how much is it? 200,000, 300. Silence. "About 220,000, I said. "Between credit cards, personal loans, and the car loan that's 4 payments behind." Daniel had gone white. How do you know that?" "I know many things, Daniel. I know your consulting firm lost 3 major clients last year. I know the house in Coral Gables is 2 months from foreclosure if you don't catch up on the payments. I know the children's school sent a letter demanding overdue tuition." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "You didn't come here for family," I continued. "You came for money. The inheritance was going to save you, wasn't it? 18.5 million divided between 2 children, 9.25 million each. Enough to pay every debt and still have plenty left. Mrs. Miller, I only. But there will be no inheritance, Daniel, not for you. And now you're going to go home and tell Lauren that the kind mediator tactic didn't work." Daniel stood up, his face red. Whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. "You're making a mistake," he said, trying to sound threatening. "The only mistake I made was raising children who thought they could discard me and still inherit my money. But that mistake has already been corrected." I walked to the door and opened it. "Leave, Daniel, and don't come back. If you or any member of your family shows up here again without an invitation, I'll call the police." He looked at me for a long moment, then walked past me without another word and left. I closed the door. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from satisfaction. Small victory number 2. I called Linda as soon as Daniel was gone. "You won't believe what just happened." I told her everything. Linda laughed, that loud, shameless laugh I had known for 40 years. "Margaret, you're a beast. How did you know about his debts?" "I have my contacts, Linda. When you live 65 years and build a company, you get to know people. And when you have real money, people tell you things." "And he didn't suspect anything before the dinner?" "I mean, no one suspected. Thomas and I always lived modestly. We never flaunted anything. To the world, we were just a retired couple living on savings. Geniuses. The 2 of you were geniuses." I smiled, despite everything. "Thomas used to say money is a tool, not a trophy." I agreed. "And now? Do you think they'll give up?" I thought for a moment. "No, Daniel was only the first attempt. They'll try other things." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I'll be ready." 2 weeks passed after Daniel's visit. 2 weeks of relative silence. Lauren and Andrew's messages kept arriving, but less often. Now they were regrouping, planning the next move. And I kept my routine: coffee, walks, reading. But there was something bothering me, a doubt that refused to go away. One Saturday afternoon, alone in the apartment, I picked up the phone, looked at Lauren's number in my contacts, and thought about calling. I thought about saying, "Daughter, can't we talk for real, without accusations, without wills, without money? Just the two of us?" My finger hovered over the call button. What if I was wrong? What if everyone else was right? Lauren, Andrew, maybe even Thomas at the beginning. What if I truly had been an absent mother, a woman who chose the company over her children? The doubt ate at me. 65 years of life, and I still didn't know whether I had made the right choices. My finger remained suspended over the button. "Call," a voice inside me said. "Call and talk. Maybe there's still time." I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and then the phone vibrated. A WhatsApp message. Lauren to Daniel, sent by mistake to the family group that still existed on my phone. "Daniel, my mom won't answer. You need to try again. Tell her we've changed, that we love her. Say anything. If we don't reverse this will, the house goes into foreclosure next month. We can't lose this inheritance." I read the message 3 times. Inheritance, not mother, not family, not real love. Inheritance. My finger moved away from the call button. The doubt evaporated like mist in the morning sun. I was not the one who was wrong. I had never been. It was them. It had always been them. I deleted the family group. On the eve of November 23rd, the doorbell rang. I opened the door without checking the peephole. My mistake. It was Ethan, my 17-year-old grandson. He stood there looking uncomfortable, earbuds around his neck, phone in his hand. Tall, skinny, modern haircut, brand-name sneakers, the image of a typical upper-middle-class teenager. "Hi, Grandma," he said without looking me in the eye. My heart tightened. How long had it been since I had seen this boy? A year? More? Ethan. What a surprise. "Come in." He entered, looking around with the same appraising air Daniel had had. Except in Ethan's case, it was disinterest, not calculation. "Do you want water? Juice?" "No, thanks. Mom asked me to come." "Ah, so that was it," Mom asked. "Yes, she said you two had a fight and that it would be nice if I visited you." I sat on the couch and gestured for him to do the same. Ethan sat on the edge of the armchair as if he wanted to be able to stand up and run at any moment. "Ethan," I said, "do you know why your mother and I are not speaking?" He shrugged. "More or less. She said it was a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. That's the second time I've heard that word this week. He looked confused. "What really happened, Grandma?" I thought about how to answer. Ethan was a boy, 17, still in high school. It wasn't fair to place on him the weight of what his parents had done. "Your mother and your uncle said some painful things to me," I answered. "Things that cannot be undone." "Like what?" "That's between us, the adults. None of this is your fault." He looked relieved by that answer. "Okay, so are you going to make up?" "I don't know, Ethan. Maybe not." "But you're my grandmother." I looked at the boy, the grandson I barely knew because my daughter had never allowed us to build a real bond. "I am, and I always will be. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to accept being treated any kind of way." Ethan did not answer. He looked down at his phone, probably wishing he were anywhere else. "Ethan, you can leave if you want. I know you don't want to be here." He stood up fast, too fast. "Sorry, Grandma. It's just that I have a test tomorrow." "That's all right. Go study." He went to the door, relieved, but before leaving, he stopped and turned around. "Grandma, yes, I don't know what really happened, but sorry for whatever." My eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Ethan. Good luck on your test." He nodded and left. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, leaning against the wood. Lauren had sent her own son as an emotional weapon. She had used a teenager to try to manipulate me, and the worst part was, it almost worked. But I saw the visit for what it was. One more desperate attempt. Ethan had not come because he wanted to see me. He came because his mother sent him. He knew nothing about me. He had no interest in knowing. He was a stranger with my blood. It was not his fault. I called Linda that night. They sent the boy as an emotional weapon. Ethan showed up here, clearly not wanting to be here, repeating that it was a misunderstanding and asking if we were going to make up. "And what did you say?" "That I didn't know, and that none of it was his fault." Linda sighed. "You're too good, Margaret." "I'm not. I just don't want to do to him what Lauren did to me. Turn a child into a tool." "And now?" What do you think they'll try next? I thought for a moment. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm ready. 2 weeks of silence. I almost thought they had given up. Almost. And do you think I'm right not to give in? Tell me your opinion down below. December arrived, hot 93 degrees, the Florida sun punishing Miami without mercy. I kept my routine. Coffee. Walks early in the morning before the heat got worse. Reading in the afternoon with the air conditioning on. Life went on, despite everything. The contact attempts had practically stopped. After Daniel and Ethan, Lauren seemed to have understood that the emotional approach would not work. Andrew had given up first. He was the weaker of the two. He always had been. But I knew it wasn't over. Desperate people do desperate things. And $18.5 million was enough money to make anyone desperate. On Wednesday, December 4th, I received a call from Attorney Williams. Mrs. Miller, we have a problem. Or rather, they have a problem. What happened? Karen Miller, your daughter-in-law, Andrew's wife, has filed a petition for a compulsory psychiatric evaluation. My blood ran cold. She did what? She's alleging mental incapacity and undue influence in the will. She wants you evaluated by court-appointed experts to determine whether you were of sound mind when you signed the document. I sat down on the couch, my legs suddenly weak. Karen, the daughter-in-law who barely looked at me at family gatherings. The cold, calculating attorney who treated Andrew like a subordinate and me like an inconvenience. Can this work, Robert? No, but it can be humiliating and time-consuming. What do you suggest? There was a pause on the other end. I suggest a direct confrontation on her territory. What do you mean? Schedule a meeting at her law firm. With her, me, and anyone else she wants to bring. Let's resolve this face-to-face. I thought for a moment. When? Tomorrow, if possible. The sooner we shut this down, the better. So, tomorrow, Thursday's December 5th, 11 in the morning. Karen's law office was on Brickell Avenue, one of those glass and steel commercial buildings that all look the same. She had worked there for years at a large employment law firm. She probably thought knowing attorneys gave her an advantage. She was wrong. Attorney Williams met me in the lobby. He wore a dark suit, leather briefcase in hand, his usual professorial air. 25 years as our attorney. He knew every cent of the estate, every decision Thomas and I had made. Ready, he asked. Ready. We took the elevator to the 12th floor. A receptionist led us to a conference room overlooking the city. Karen was already there. She stood by the window, black hair pulled into a tight bun, dull women's suit, expression permanently critical. Beside her stood a man around 50, probably a colleague specializing in estate law. Mrs. Miller, Karen said without offering her hand. Thank you for coming. I didn't come for you, I replied. I came to end this nonsense. The man beside her looked surprised by my bluntness. Karen showed nothing. That woman had ice in her veins. We sat on opposite sides of the table. Attorney Williams and I on one side, Karen and her colleague on the other. Let's stick to the facts, Karen said, opening a folder. My client, in this case the Miller family, questions the validity of the will signed by you in April and revised in September of this year. Your client, I interrupted. You mean your husband, my son, Andrew. Karen didn't blink. The grounds for the challenge are threefold. First, an elderly woman living alone for almost 5 years without regular family support. Second, possible cognitive decline associated with advanced age and prolonged grief. Third, a will created under emotional pressure during a vulnerable period. I looked at Attorney Williams. He nodded slightly. That was his cue. May I respond, he said, opening his own folder. Please, Karen said with a smile that held nothing friendly. Attorney Williams took out documents and placed them on the table one by one. Psychiatric evaluation from August. Full mental capacity. Next, Karen looked at the paper. 5-year financial history. Consistent, profitable, sound decisions. Next, her colleague began to sweat. Will registered and notarized. 2 independent witnesses. All legal protocols followed. Attorney Williams closed the folder with a sharp snap. In short, you will lose, you will pay dearly, and you may expose yourself to sanctions for filing in bad faith. Silence filled the room. Karen looked at her colleague. Her colleague looked back with an expression that clearly said, "You dragged me into a mess." Furthermore, Attorney Williams continued, Any court challenge would require the financial situation of the petitioners to be exposed in court, including debts, overdue financing, and potential tax issues. Karen went white. Now it was my turn. Karen, I said, leaning forward, I'm going to be very direct with you. I know you never liked me. I know you see this inheritance as salvation from the debts you and Andrew are hiding from everyone. Mrs. Miller, let me finish. You can sue, that is your right, but you will lose. You will spend a lot of money, and your whole world will turn upside down when your finances become public. I looked into her eyes, including what you're hiding from Andrew. Karen's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. She recovered quickly, but I saw it. Attorney Williams saw it. Her colleague saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Yes, you do, and I know too. The difference is that I don't need to use that information unless you force me. Absolute silence. Karen's colleague stood up. Excuse me, he said. I need to make a call. He left the room almost running. Karen was alone now. The cold armor had cracks in it. Mrs. Miller, she began, but her voice was no longer so firm. Perhaps we can reconsider our approach. Perhaps you can. I've already made my decision, and it will not change. I stood. Attorney Williams did the same. Karen, I'm going to be clear one last time. Do not contact me again. Do not send Andrew to contact me. Do not send attorneys, mediators, grandchildren, or anyone else. It's over. I walked to the door. And one last thing, I said, turning back. Andrew deserved better than you, but that is his problem, not mine. I left the room without looking back. In the elevator, Attorney Williams smiled. Mrs. Miller, in 25 years of practice, I've never seen anything like that. Thank you, Robert. May I ask you something? You may. What do you know about Karen? What is she hiding from Andrew? I looked at him. This stays between us. Always. I took a deep breath. She has a separate bank account. Money she's been siphoning off for years without Andrew knowing. Probably planning for an eventual divorce or simply not trusting her husband. And how did you find that out? Contacts. When you have real money, people tell you things. The elevator reached the ground floor. Does Andrew know? Robert asked. No, and I'm not going to tell him. It's none of my business. But you could use it against her. I could, but I don't need to. She already knows that's enough. We stepped out of the building into the scorching December sun. Brickell Avenue was alive with people, cars, and motion. And now, Robert asked. Now I'm going home to make iced coffee and wait for Christmas. Christmas of 2024 was different from every other Christmas. For the first time in 65 years, I did not spend December 25th with family. At least not with family by blood. I spent it with Linda and Linda's friends, a table of 8 people, all over 60, all with complicated family stories, all determined not to let that ruin the holiday. It was good. Laughter, wine, turkey, cinnamon French toasts, old music playing on the radio, conversation about nothing and about everything. At 9 that night, as the gathering was winding down, Linda pulled me aside. How are you really? I thought for a moment. Strangely well. It feels strange to say it, but I'm at peace. Even without the children. Precisely because I'm without the children. Without the obligation to pretend. Without the fake questions about how I'm doing. Without counting the minutes until everyone leaves. Linda smiled. You found your family. I did. It took 65 years, but I found it. 3 days later, on Saturday, December 28th, the doorbell rang. It was 2 in the afternoon. Intense heat. 91 degrees, the Florida winter punishing the city like summer. I went to the door. I looked through the peephole. I had learned my lesson after Ethan, and I almost couldn't believe what I saw. Grace, my 13-year-old granddaughter, alone. She was sweaty, her curly brown hair sticking to her face, glasses sliding down her nose. She wore a simple t-shirt and denim shorts. She looked as if she had walked a long way. I opened the door. Grace, what are you doing here? She looked at me with those big eyes. Thomas's, he had always said. Hi, Grandma. Does your mother know you're here? She shook her head. No. I ran away. I came on the Metro Rail, my heart squeezed. 13 years old, alone on the Miami Metro Rail, crossing the city to see me. Come in, I said. Come in right now. She entered. I closed the door. Do you want water? You're flushed. Yes, please. I went to the kitchen, got a cold bottle of water, and came back to the living room. Grace had sat on the couch, her legs swinging without touching the floor. Drink, I said, handing her the bottle. She drank half of it in one go, then sighed as if relieved to finally be there. Grandma, I don't know what's going on. What do you mean? At my house? With Mom, with everyone? Nobody tells me anything, but I know something's wrong and I know it has to do with you. I sat beside her on the couch. What did you hear? Conversations. Mom and Dad arguing at night. Mom crying on the phone. Uncle Andrew and Aunt Karen coming over all the time and talking quietly. And every time I walk into the room, they stop talking. She looked at me. Mom says you don't want to see us anymore, that you got mad and don't want to be our grandmother anymore. My eyes filled with tears. Grace, that is not true. I knew it. That's why I came here. Because I didn't believe her. I held my granddaughter's hand. Small, warm, alive. What really happened, Grandma? I thought about how to answer. Grace was 13. She was young, but she wasn't foolish, and she deserved to know at least part of the truth. Your mother and your uncle said very painful things to me, I said. They said they didn't want me in their lives anymore, that I was a stranger, that you and Ethan would be better off without me. Grace's eyes widened. They said that. They did. On October 18th at a dinner. But why? I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe they truly believe it. Maybe they were angry for other reasons. All I know is that the words were said, and they can't be undone. Grace was silent for a moment. Then she said, I don't agree with them. What? I don't think we'd be better off without you. I like you, Grandma. I always have. A tear slid down my cheek. For the first time in months, it was a tear of joy. I like you too, Grace, very much. I remember Grandpa, she said. I know I was little when he died, but I remember him, his smell, like wet dirt and coffee, and how he laughed, and how he called me his special little girl. Pain and joy mixed in my chest. He adored you, I said. He said you had his eyes, I know. He told me that once, when I was 7. We sat in silence for a moment. Grace held my hand tightly, as if she were afraid of losing me again. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course. There's something about money, right? I heard them talking about inheritance, about the will. Is that why they're mad? I looked at my granddaughter, 13 years old, so perceptive, so attentive. Yes, I admitted. It has to do with money, too. But I don't care about money, Grace said. I just wanted to see you, that's all. And then I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears came, many of them, hot and liberating. Grace moved closer and hugged me. A small hug, but full of true love. Don't cry, Grandma. It's okay. They're good tears, sweetheart. They're good tears. We stayed like that for a while, holding each other on the couch, saying nothing, needing to say nothing. We spent the afternoon together. I took out the photo album, the one I kept on the bedroom shelf, full of memories. I showed Grace everything. Thomas young, our wedding, the children when they were small, the company growing, the grandchildren being born. That's Grandpa at the beach, she said, pointing to a photo from Key Biscayne. You remember that? I do. I was 5. He taught me to build sandcastles. He was good at that. He made huge castles with towers and moats. Grace laughed, a genuine, joyful laugh. Grandma, why is Mom so different from you? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You're calm, kind. Mom is always nervous, always worried about what other people think. Why? I thought for a moment. I don't know, Grace. Sometimes people become different from what we expected. Sometimes life changes people in ways we don't understand. But you're her mother. You raised her. I did. But raising someone doesn't mean controlling who that person becomes. Everyone makes their own choices. And sometimes those choices are disappointing. Grace nodded, thoughtful. I don't want to be like her, she said quietly. When I grow up, I want to be like you. I held her face between my hands. You're going to be yourself, sweetheart. Just that. And you're going to be wonderful. At 5 in the afternoon, I realized I had to send her back. Grace, you need to go home. Your mother will be worried. She probably didn't even notice I left. She was on the phone fighting with someone. Even so, you can't disappear like that. Grace looked sad. Can I come back another day without them knowing? I thought for a moment. It was risky. If Lauren found out, she would make a scene. She would use it against me. But looking into those eyes, Thomas's eyes, I couldn't say no. You can whenever you want. Text me first so I can make sure I'm home. Grace smiled, the most beautiful smile I had seen in months. Thank you, Grandma. Now come on, I'll call a ride to take you close to home. Before she went down, I hugged her tightly. I love you, Grandma, she said. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you can imagine. She waved through the window as the car pulled away. I returned to the apartment. Silence was the same as always, but now it felt different, less heavy, more full of possibility. I sat on the couch where we had spent the afternoon. The photo album was still open on the coffee table, showing a picture of Thomas holding baby Grace in his arms. "Did you see that, my love?" I whispered. She came on her own because she truly loves me. The silence did not answer, but somehow I felt Thomas smiling. "If you cried with me over my Grace, leave a like. That girl deserves everything." Monday, January 6th, 2025. The new year had arrived without fanfare. I had spent New Year's Eve at a small party in Linda's apartment, toasting at midnight with cheap champagne and promises of a better year. Now, on the first Monday of the year, I was sitting in Attorney Williams's office. "Mrs. Miller, to what do I owe the honor? I want to make a change to the will." He raised his eyebrows. "Did you change your mind about your children?" "No. I want to add a clause for Grace." Attorney Williams leaned back in his chair, interested. "Tell me." I explained the surprise visit, the afternoon we spent together, Thomas's eyes, the tears, the true love of a 13-year-old girl who crossed the city on the Metrorail just to see her grandmother. When I finished, Attorney Williams was smiling. "What did you have in mind?" "An education trust. $2 million, exclusively for Grace, accessible when she turns 18. Will her parents have access? Nen. Zero. The money goes directly to her, without passing through Lauren or Daniel. If they try to access it earlier, they lose the right." Attorney Williams nodded, taking notes. "We can do that. I'll need a few weeks to draft it and register it. No rush. I just want to make sure it's done." "Does Grace know?" "No, and she won't know until I die or until she turns 18, whichever comes first." "Why not tell her?" I thought for a moment. "Because I want her to keep visiting me out of love, not self-interest. If she knows about the money, that doubt will always be in her head. Is Grandma doing this for me, or am I doing this for the money? I don't want that for her." Attorney Williams looked at me with respect. "Mrs. Miller, Thomas was right about you." "Right about what?" "He told me once, many years ago, 'Robert, my wife may look hard on the outside, but inside she's pure heart.' I never forgot it." My eyes filled with tears again. I had been crying too much lately. "Thank you, Robert. I'll draft the clause this week. I'll come by for you to sign it." "Perfect." Thursday, January 9th. I had lunch with Grace for the first time since Christmas. She had sent a message the day before. "Grandma, can I come over tomorrow?" "Mom will be out all day," I answered. "Of course. Come at 11. I'll make pasta." She arrived exactly on time, smiling, her curly hair loose and a backpack on her shoulders. "I brought my sketchbook," she said. "I want to show you some things." We spent the afternoon like that. Garlic pasta, orange juice, and hours looking at Grace's drawings. She had talent. She drew animals with incredible detail, every hair, every feather in the right place. "I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up," she said. "Your grandfather loved animals. You got that from him." She smiled. Really. He always wanted a dog, but the apartment wouldn't allow it. So he would spend hours at their park petting other people's dogs." Grace laughed. "That sounds so much like him." At 3 in the afternoon, when she was about to leave, I said, "Grace, can I ask you something?" "What?" "Keep coming to see me whenever you can, even when I get old and boring." She looked at me seriously. "Grandma, you're never going to be boring, and I'll always come, I promise." We hugged at the door. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my special little girl." She smiled at Thomas's nickname, then stepped into the elevator and disappeared. I closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. This, I thought, this is family, this is love. 3 months after the dinner, Linda showed up at my apartment with orange cake and her usual question. "Regretting anything?" "Nothing. Is Lawrenson still trying to contact you?" She stopped up a week. I think she finally understood. "And Andrew?" "He gave up first. He was always the weaker of the two." We sat in silence for a moment, looking out the window. The January sun punished Miami, nearly 90 degrees, a Florida winter pretending to be midsummer. "Do you know what I did this week?" I said. "I went to Sylvester to meet the cancer research team. The 7.5 million going there can save lives, Linda, people who still have time. And the scholarship fund starts in March. First class of 10 students, low-income young people, all in Thomas's name." Linda raised her coffee cup. To the new chapter. To the new chapter. My phone vibrated. A message from Grace. Grandma, can we have lunch Sunday? I miss you. I answered, of course, sweetheart. Our usual restaurant. Another message from her, a photo. She was holding a stray cat in her arms. I found him in the park. Can I take him home? Mom is going to lose it. I smiled. If your mom loses it, bring him to my place. There's room here. Seriously, Grandma. Seriously. You're the best. The phone vibrated one more time. It wasn't Grace. It was Lauren. Mom, I know you're seeing Grace behind my back. This isn't going to stay like this. I read the message, took a deep breath, and deleted it. Some battles are not worth the energy. And Lauren had already lost the war. I smiled. A small smile, but a real one. This was family. This was love. And it was enough. If my story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell me in the comments. Do you know someone like me? A woman who had to protect herself from her own family? And tell me honestly, what would you have done in my place? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a like if the story moved you. Subscribe to the channel and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives quietly when a person finally chooses peace over betrayal.